All right. So, welcome. My name is Dana Ricci. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations and Engagement for the School of Arts and Sciences. I would like to welcome you to today's virtual Scarlet Speaker event. I think we may have some first-time attendees, so if so, welcome. I would like to just do a few kind of housekeeping notes. Everyone's cameras are off and you're muted so that there's no background noise during the presentation. We are asking that you use the chat throughout the presentation to submit any questions you may have. We may stop and answer them if it sort of goes with the flow, or we may wait until the end to answer them, but please do submit anything into the chat. Also, this event will be recorded and will be stored online for viewing after the event. We will send the link so that everyone has it. And lastly, if you ever get invitations to these events and you know someone outside of Rutgers who you think would enjoy them, by all means, we ask you to please send the invite. These are not just for Rutgers alums. We love to have people from all over join us. So now we'll get started. Our presenter for today is a proud Rutgers College alum and workplace expert, Bonnie Low-Kramen. She was an English major, class of 79, who says that she uses her Rutgers education every day of her life. Bonnie has spoken and taught in 14 countries. Her TEDx talk is called The Real Reasons People Quit. For 25 years, she has worked with the Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis as her executive assistant. Bonnie has walked in the shoes of the staff and has written about it in her two books, Be the Ultimate Assistant and Staff Matters. Bonnie's clients include Microsoft, Starbucks, Amazon, the Wharton School, and British Parliament. Bonnie is a Jersey girl who is now based in Jacksonville, Florida. She's here to talk about what it takes to work and lead in today's very changed workplace. So I'm going to turn my camera off and hand it over. Please welcome Bonnie.
Dana, thank you so much. And Madison, thank you for all of your support for this presentation today. Welcome to all of you. I am so delighted to be here as a Rutgers alum and to see in the chat so many friends. And my assistant, Jen Wilner, is here today. So I'm not only a person who trains assistants, I actually employ one, and we figured out we've been together 15 years now. So um, we have some really important things to talk about regarding this current workplace in 2026, and we're actually going to do a couple of polls um, and to find out what you're thinking and what you believe. As Dana mentioned, my work is training C-suite executive and personal assistants. So I go inside companies to work with them and their leaders. I wanted to speak with you today to tell you what I'm seeing and hearing. And then I'm going to save time so that we can talk together. You can put your comments and questions into the chat, and I'm going to work really hard to get to as many as possible. But in case I forget, Bonnie at bonnielowkramen.com is how you get me. And I mean it when I say I want you to stay in touch with me. There's too much at stake not to in this workplace. So what am I seeing? We have a workplace that is in serious transition, one that is fragmented and fractured for many reasons, in part because of the economy and volatile job market, in part because of the hybrid and remote work schedules, in part because of the divisive politics in our country, causing high anxiety among the people inside companies, and in part because leaders are struggling mightily with where they should be investing time and resources. Frankly, in many companies, and you'll tell me, it feels to the staff like the leaders are building the plane as they're flying it, as they try to understand where to put the resources for AI. Should we downsize and lay off folks and rely on the robots? Many companies are doing that very soon, like too soon. It's complicated out there. And the only way I know to navigate the complications in this workplace is to gather in rooms like this one, virtual ones, ideally in person if we can. But this is absolutely the next best thing. We're connecting people from all over, including Kenya and including Vancouver, Canada, and all parts in between. So that's pretty magical. So while on one hand, it's a very exciting time to be in this workplace with all the advances in high tech and everybody running around obsessed with AI, it has also never been a more complicated time in the workplace. And those complications are seriously impacting the people who are charged with staffing it and leading it. Now, I'm wondering, how do you see it? So I want to find out what you think with two polls. And with Dana's help, Dana, I'd love for you to launch the first poll, please. Let's see if technology cooperates with us today. Okay. Tell us what you think. Do you think it's more difficult to be a leader in 2026 than it was essentially pre-pandemic and in 2019? Is it more difficult to be leading others? Now, Dana, just if you could verbally say, like, I see the results on the screen. Do you? I mean, can somebody say in the chat whether you can see the results?
No.
You
Okay.
cannot. Okay.
So
So I think
right
we
now,
should go
if I
ahead.
end
If
it,
you
will it
can
show it?
end, if you end the poll and then you have to share results, please.
Okay.
Thank you to Sarah and Michelle and everyone who said
Share
that.
results.
Yes, please.
Can people see that now?
Yes. Can you, someone in the,
Yes.
okay,
Okay.
yes. So 66% of you said absolutely yes, it's more difficult. And 32 said somewhat. So the answer is yes. And there's nobody saying that it's not at all. Okay. So Dana, could we go straight to the second poll, please? If you can
Yes.
stop this poll and let's go to the second one.
All right.
So I just asked you if it's more difficult to be a leader. Now I want to know if you think it's more difficult to be an employee in 2026 than it was in 2019. Is it more difficult now? It's one thing for you to hear what I think and what I see, but it's a whole other thing for you to tell us what you think. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Um, and the results are still coming in. This is fascinating. So go ahead. Let's end it and show the results, Dana, if you will. So somebody in the chat, can we just say yes, you can see the results? That so fewer of you believe that it's more difficult to be an employee than it is a leader in 2026. 48% of you, so essentially half of you say definitely it's harder, and 43% say somewhat. And there are a percentage of you, 9%, who say not at all. Not at all, that it's not changed at all. So that's just interesting to know, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it's a true statement that it is more difficult now to be working in 2026 than before the pandemic. And that's a big deal. These results are consistent with what I'm hearing in the rooms I'm in. The bottom line is that leading in 2026 is a challenging and hard job and getting harder, not easier. It requires courage and it takes a lot of hard work. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. So my plan for this next little while is I want to share with you some trends that I'm seeing and some ways that the best leaders, the most effective leaders are addressing them. And before we're done, as I said, we're going to do some Q&A. My work through the Be the Ultimate Assistant workshop uh, shops, I train high-level executive and personal assistants, and the profession is 93 to 97% female. So it's mostly women who are hired to support CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, celebrities, etc. Now, I've done this in 14 countries and 38 states because I counted. And as much talking as I do, I listen twice as much. And those stories are in my two books, Be the Ultimate Assistant, and my newest book, Staff Matters, People-Focused Solutions for the Ultimate New Workplace. I'm here to say plainly that there are aspects of our workplace that are broken, and the dysfunction that exists in companies is hurting the people, the staff, and the leaders. So I want to tell you two stories. The first is that I believe leaders are being tested right now as never before. As Dana shared, I worked with the Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis for 25 years. Now, I know that there are probably some of you on the call who don't really know her name or may have not seen her films. Uh, she won her Oscar for the film Moonstruck with Cher and Nicolas Cage. And then she did the film Steel Magnolia, starring Julia Roberts. And if you enjoy film, these are really terrific they're pretty great movies and available on your streaming. It was a work experience that changed my life. Like most everyone though, in the workplace pre-pandemic, which was when we worked together, Olympia and I worked together out of her home in New York City in person 5 days a week. And then a few years into our work, when we had our rhythm down, we knew what we were doing. It was really kind of, I understood the job. She was cast in a film in Australia and had to leave New York for 3 whole months. Essentially, with some prep, we went to a fully remote situation and we had to rely on technology to keep us connected. And in those days, it was the fax machine. The time zone issue was a problem, and the result is that our communication suffered. After she returned, as well as we knew each other, it was not an easy transition to find our rhythm again and regain our system of communication. The time apart took its toll, and it's taking its toll in 2026 with many leaders who have staff either working fully remote or in a hybrid schedule. And of course, some companies are enforcing 5 days in the office, but there is serious pushback by the staff as they want flexibility. Back in October, a few months ago, I spoke in Rockville, Maryland at an organization called FINRA. Some of you may have heard of it. FINRA stands for the Financial Regulatory Agency. And I had in the room, in person, in the room, we had about 50 administrative staff, and we had about 10 executives, leaders, managers. And the leader of those administrative staff is a man named Justin. Justin is based in New Jersey. The team at FINRA is all fully remote, except for events like this one, where they were paid to get on airplanes and come to Rockville, Maryland, and be in a room together. So the energy was just awesome when they got to be together. Many of them had never met each other face to face before, but something really interesting happened in the room that day. As we were talking through content, one woman spoke up and told us a story about her previous company, which allowed bullying, which had a toxic work environment, and how the managers didn't do anything about it. And she really was brought to tears as she was telling the story. And she was highlighting the difference between how it feels at FINRA and how Justin treats everybody. Well, can I tell you that not everyone, but spontaneously in the room, people started standing up and saying, Justin cares about me as a person. Justin asks about my family. Justin asks my opinion on what we should do. Justin makes us feel respected, seen, and heard. And there were about 12 people who stood up and just from their heart spoke what was on their mind. And here's a man, he was shocked as he heard people talking about him like this. And they were saying this in front of him. And so in front of everybody, I got to ask Justin, what's your secret, Justin? How is it that you work out of New Jersey and you manage this team who's fully remote and they have this strength of feeling? And he said, Bonnie, I just treat people the way I want to be treated. I treat them with kindness and respect, and I value them for their unique contribution. And what I said to the room is that from where I sit, unfortunately, that story is more uncommon than common. It is not the norm. But I applaud Justin, and that's the point I want to make, is that this new complicated workplace, the X factor in making it work or not work are the leaders, are the managers. But here's the thing, no one prepared leaders for this truly unprecedented situation. And many are struggling with how to enforce whatever policy they put into effect, whether it's 3 days, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and everybody's, whatever it is. And I asked Justin, who prepared you for this? Who prepared you for managing a fully remote workplace? And he told me that he graduated college at age 21, and at age 31, he received a program that really helped him become a better manager. But it took 10 years beyond when he graduated college. And what I think is that that's unacceptable. It can't be. We cannot continue that way. Because in 2026, staff are reporting that there's a disconnect between policies that are set forth, whatever it is, and fair enforcement of those policies. That's a leadership challenge. And that's an issue that's here to stay because many, many, many most companies are doing hybrid. I can tell you that in the effort to fill gaps created by all the downsizing and layoffs that have happened, leaders are pulling people from their current staff to fill those gaps. Now, many of those people are being voluntold for new responsibilities and often not being paid more money for that. They're not being asked about it first. I raise this with you today because not being asked in this workplace is a big deal. Perhaps you can relate to the feeling of having someone make a decision that directly affects you and your life, but you're not asked about it first. That's being voluntold. When it happens, what's the result? People can be resentful, angry, and often not fully equipped to take on more work, but fear stops them from saying something about it. Too much is going unspoken and unsaid in this workplace. These are just a few of the issues that I write about in Staff Matters, which took 7 years to write, and I published it in 2023. I decided that I needed to pull all the constituents of the workplace into the pages of one book: the leaders, the assistants, the HR professionals, the recruiters, and the business school professors. Because here's my premise, that if it's true that there are aspects of the workplace that are broken, then no one of the groups I just named can fix them alone. We must talk to each other. We must have conversations and collaborate and cooperate. Every person on a staff was hired for a reason, at least one reason, probably many reasons. The smartest leaders are the ones who leverage that knowledge of their staff. The leaders who are running the most successful companies with the strongest retention are the ones who slow down the decision-making process long enough to bring the staff into the conversation to say, what do you think? If we asked you to do XYZ, what would that do to your workload? What are your thoughts about it? To do that is respectful and smart. Sometimes in the interest of saving time, doing things fast, leaders can tend to jump over the very people who are going to be impacted by these decisions. And I urge them in the strongest possible ways to that it's not smart to do that, that they need to slow it down, to talk to their staff who they painstakingly hired in the first place. What all staff want is to be seen, heard, respected, and appreciated. Now, certainly one way to appreciate staff is to pay them properly and give them titles that actually reflect what they do. That is not the case in many companies. And another thing that many leaders don't seem to realize is that their staff talks to each other about money and compensation. Comp is often one of the worst kept secrets at a company. Money is a big issue in our new workplace, but so is navigating toxic work environments that tolerate bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Allowing these behaviors is the fastest way to chase good people away. And how does it make sense to allow poison to move through an organization? That's self-defeating. That's a lose-lose situation. And that's a question that keeps me up many a night, because in my work, I hear stories that you just can't make up. As I wrote Staff Matters, I realized that one main group that needs it most are university students, especially the ones studying business and HR. In fact, I'm actively speaking inside business schools to get in front of our young and ambitious men and women who aspire to be leaders of companies and the humans who populate it. And I don't want them to have to wait 10 years for the training that they need. From the work I do, I see a serious leadership gap in our modern workplace, and I want to help guide the next generation of leaders by speaking with them and giving them Staff Matters as a resource. I just want to read you a very short dedication to them, to business students at the front of Staff Matters. You will eventually have a staff to manage. When that happens, I want you to be as ready as you can be, equipped with information that will matter on a daily basis. Know this, your success will depend directly on the success of your staff. No one gets there alone. No one. Leading others requires moral courage and hard work. The best leaders rely and lean on their staffs. Every page you are about to read will support you to do exactly that. I want to support our future leaders. Between the massive layoffs that have happened just this year, our new graduates will be competing against seasoned professionals more than ever. They need an edge to set them up for success. For example, new grads need to know that HR's job many times is to pay them the least amount that they will say yes to. And I don't like saying this, but what I see and hear from the assistants of the world is that HR lowballs salaries because they count on candidates negotiating, but hope that they won't. I have to say, you don't get if you don't ask. Negotiating is vital, and we need to teach more people how to do it. And while money is important, it's not everything. What I tell my students is that if they are weighing two job offers, and one is a good salary but does not offer any budget for professional development, and the other is less money but does have a culture of continuous learning, I say it's a no-brainer. I tell them to go with the second one. In this AI-driven workplace environment, ongoing learning is going to be critical. There is no winging it anymore. Furthermore, when our new grads do become leaders, I urge them in the strongest possible way to build a culture of learning and respect as the most powerful way to retain the best people. My friends, there's so much to unpack in today's volatile workplace. Burnout, high stress, mental health problems abound, and this in the face of headlines that proclaim the coming of 4-day work weeks and even 3-day work weeks. I don't know about you, but my students, when they hear things like that, they roll their eyes and they say, yes, but for who? They don't see that it's for them, these 3 and 4-day work weeks. From where I sit, the kryptonite for leaders in 2026 is to permit a them versus us dynamic in their companies. People cannot thrive in an environment where they have no voice. The most effective leaders give their staff a voice and make it psychologically safe to speak their minds. I hope that your wheels are turning about how good leaders can become great leaders. And if you are inspired to take action in your life or in your company, to that I say, if not now, when? And if not you, who? What are we all waiting for? Now, I suspect that many of you are parents and maybe even grandparents. I am, and I want it to be better for them. And I suspect you do too. I want them managed by leaders who actually care about them and show it. So, Dana, Madison, I'd love to know the comments and any questions from our audience. And I want to thank you very much.
We have a few people just sort of as you were talking about how much of a gift it is to work with leaders like the one you mentioned. Courtney said in her experience, leaders hide behind policies and they are struggling with leading and having difficult conversations.
They sure are. No one's taught them how to have them. They didn't. I asked Justin, I said, did you learn how to be a leader in business school? Did you learn anything there about managing people? And he said, absolutely not. And, you can believe me or not, but, I've been training assistants for 14, 15 years. And when I get the chance, which is pretty often, and I meet leaders, I ask them, where did you learn it? Where did you learn to manage people? And I said, was it business school? And they say, no, it wasn't. And I believe that has to change. It is no one's being trained to have the difficult conversation. It's easier to stay quiet. And for many people, it's easier to quit. People will come to me asking for help to find a new job because they're quitting because of a bully, because of a toxic work environment, and they're quitting before they ever even have one conversation with the person they're having the problem with because they were never trained. It feels so uncomfortable. Um, Dana is saying that she had an amazing leader and truly cared for all the staff, and she was let go from the organization. Oh, it sounds pretty fresh. Um, I question the decision making that's going on in companies that is trampling people. You know, uh, of course, I know that there may become needs for downsizing and layoffs, but it doesn't have to be traumatizing to do it. But who's training leaders to let go people humanely, like without a minute's notice and without security guards, hanging out by them to escort them out with very little notice? There's so much trauma going on in the workplace from these behaviors that I believe in many cases are from not being educated on how to deal. I see Allison's questions, and Dana, please interject if you'd like. But Allison is asking any suggestions on how to manage up when the leader is in burnout. It's sad to see the attitude affect the newer folks in the workplace. So true, Allison. Burnout is happening at every level. I've been reading articles that say sometimes when staff is being offered the opportunity to have a management position, they're turning it down because they see the price that is needing to be paid. So how do you manage up? The way to manage up is to make sure, especially for the executive assistants on the call, is that you are sitting in on important meetings so that you're hearing the context. It's not only about the content, the tasks, the responsibilities that you have, but it's the context about what's coming at you in the next 3 months. It's the why. Why are we doing that? And if you're sitting in on meetings with your leader, that can help. And then you have the ability to go to your leader and say, so I know from the meeting that we're planning this project next week. You know what? I'm great at PowerPoint and Canva, and I'd love to take a shot at the deck. I'd love to help take this piece. It's not only what can I do to help you, it's the most effective staff are the ones who say, I'd like to take this on. Are you cool with that? Or just do it. draft, draft the email, draft an outline, and try your hardest to save your leaders time and enable them to do the thing that they were hired to do in the first place. We're all running on empty. It does feel like we're flying, building the plane as we're flying it. Um, Kevin is asking, EAs generally are great at keeping everyone happy and involved. What was the most difficult situation you have had, and how did you get a positive result? Well, Kevin, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind, I had a leader who backed me up. Olympia was a perfectionist and very demanding. I mean, she definitely tested me. And as demanding as she was on herself, she was demanding on the people around her. However, she would not tolerate disrespect for me. I mean, she valued me in a very big way. She treated me as a strategic business partner. She was in a project. Now, I'm sure you've heard rumors, and there are enough mass media articles out there about creative types who can be diva-ish. And she was actively working on a project with a producer who called on the phone one day, and he was downright abusive to me on the phone. He was interrupting me. He wouldn't let me finish. He was accusing me of doing things or sending him something that I hadn't sent. It was shocking, angering, and it was the first time I'd ever dealt with a situation like this where she was actively working with the guy. And so I was unsure about how she was going to react. I knew I had to tell her, and I did. And I just stuck with the facts, which is what I tell you and everybody on this call. Stick with the facts. Just say what was said, how it was said. And I could see her getting angry as I was telling her the story. I could see her fuming. And honestly, I didn't know if that anger was towards me for some reason. And she said, that is unacceptable. He has no right to talk to you like that. Are you going to handle it, or am I? Well, in that moment, in that sentence, which I'll never forget, I told her I would handle it. And I did. But with the license to do it from her, that she was not afraid that the project would go away or that he would be mad at her. She wasn't afraid of any of that. She was pissed off that he was rude to me. And in fact, he was rude again to me and was interrupting me. And I remember saying, it's obvious that now is a very bad time. So why don't we talk again when it's a better time? Thanks. Bye. Click. And I hung up the phone, literally hung up on him. That's um, that's how I handled it. And can I tell you, in this career of mine, there have been many, many, many. difficult situations. Um, it- you know, people are about themselves and they're looking at you through their lens. And so your question for yourselves is rather than think it's all you and your fault, it's about what's going on with them that's making them behave in this way. Dana, what are you reading? What are you hearing?
We have a question from William. What measurement do you use to decide how to approach each individual in order to communicate that you're seeing them, hearing them, and that you respect them?
What measurement do you use? Well, one tool that I find really useful in our Be the Ultimate Assistant classes and in life are those workplace personality tests. Um, we use the DISC assessment in our workshops, but you've heard of Strengths Finders and Myers-Briggs. These are tools which can help you evaluate the kind of personality that you're dealing with. And granted, it's a lot harder to gauge, to develop a relationship, a rapport with somebody over a webcam versus being in person with them. But boy, can they give you some insights to not only to your own personality, but to that of the people you're working with. And I was talking with an assistant the other day who was having a real problem with one of the people on her team, but she only works remotely with the person and they barely are on webcam. You might, even if you've been working with somebody for a long time, I strongly recommend anyone who listens to me is taking advantage of my thousands of dollars of therapy. I'm a big fan of therapy. And what the therapist would say is that if one way isn't working with somebody, change it up and change your tactic. It would be totally cool to say, Jim, I know we've been working together for 10 years already, but I realize we don't really know each other all that well. Do you want to have a virtual coffee? I'd really like to pick your brain about that. Like change up the dynamic between people. So I don't know, William, if it's a measurement so much as a feeling about in the workplace, everybody was hired for a reason, and the baseline is that because they're hired, they're your colleagues. We respect them and we treat them professionally. We're not expected to be friends. That's a bonus if that happens. So there is no room for nonsense and bullying and nastiness in the workplace. And I highly recommend, if people are behaving badly, to get them alone and either on webcam or in person and say, I really want to talk about what happened in the meeting yesterday. When you said blah, 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 you want to stick with the facts, say exactly when you said that, it made me feel that you don't trust me, or it made me feel that you don't think I'm doing my job well. Is that true? Is that my imagination? Or, I really want to work well with you. I, and everyone on this call, you should know these words take practice to say, but they sure beat silence because when you muster up the gumption to say them, it changes the relationship and usually for the better because the person you're talking to, excuse me, now knows that you are a person who is willing to confront in a positive way, to approach it. I want to work really well with you. Can we figure out a different way to communicate? Can we, reset and look at this again? I'd really like to help me understand where you think the problem is, where the disconnect is. So I hope that was useful. Dana?
We had a question from Rebecca. What is your opinion of leaders that overpraise to the point where it feels artificial?
Mm, yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? And it gets trickier if it's a man versus a woman. In Staff Matters, I have a whole chapter called Sex, which is about the difference between how men behave in the workplace versus women. Um, Overpraising is coming from a good place, it might require just saying, so listen, I see you telling me these great things. I really would value some constructive feedback if you have any. Leaders have not been taught how to give feedback either. That's the truth of it. There's a leadership expert I follow, Jack Zenger, and Jack says that the thing that people want most in the workplace is authentic feedback. And the thing that is the rarest in the workplace is authentic feedback. It comes from a place of lack of education. And so you can turn it, say, I really appreciate that positive feedback. But when you see I would really, I'm a person who enjoys learning and growing from constructive feedback. And I want to bring my best every day here at the office. So that's what I think about that.
We had a few folks just share. Christina said, when I was burning out, my team picked me up by saying that they supported my vision and were with me, and that re-energized me. Lynn shared, having the support of your leader makes a big difference in the workplace culture. Respectfulness and kindness have to be cultivated from the top down to truly be effective in the workplace.
100%. And that's the hard work I was talking about early in the presentation, that to be a leader in 2026 is not for everybody. It takes courage and it takes hard work. Justin's hard work is that every day on his list, he has people who he's talking with over the phone, on Zoom. There's a reason why people feel that he cares about them. From his point of view, he has to find ways to do that in writing, verbally, with policies, treating people fairly. That's commitment to walking the talk, to coming across as an authentic leader and not someone who's just dialing it in, making decisions without full information, which is a fear of mine, that this remote workplace is causing people to work hundreds of miles apart or thousands of miles apart, and there's not enough solid, honest information that's being shared between them. It's not, that was a really great point you just made. Whoever wrote, Christina, I think you said, it's not only the staff who need authentic feedback. Our leaders needed to, our leaders, both male and female, but I would say especially our female leaders, because they have a lot fewer role models for how to do it. And so it's valuable to, I've talked to my students who really admire their leader and how they handled a particular situation. And I say to them, tell them, tell them, find your moment and say, you know what? I so admire how you handled that very difficult situation. And I want to emulate that. I really learned from that. I certainly learned from Olympia Dukakis and how she handled people on a movie set at the theater, and I try to emulate her. So, like, we're all standing on somebody else's shoulders. I meant it when I said no one gets there alone. You can't think of anybody who's gotten to where they are alone. Not Warren Buffett, not Bill Gates, not Michelle Obama, not anybody. Um, yeah, we need to be allies for each other in this workplace because it's hard being a leader, and our leaders could use the positive reinforcement too. Dana?
Courtney asked, at my company, we promote the EEC model for feedback and grow for coaching. Is there any models
Mm.
that you really like?
Oh, Courtney, I know you're coming from an HR perspective. Um, no, I'm not, there is not a particular model that I work towards. Because of the work I do, it, I I approach it with everyone as an individual
Bonnie,
because
real
there are
quick,
different, yeah,
somebody asked if you could explain EEC and grow, what they stand for. I
yeah,
don't know. So,
Christina, yes, I mean, I
Do
have
you?
heard of it.
Okay, okay. So
Courtney,
maybe
can you just
Courtney.
put in, yeah, Courtney, if you could just say what EEC, it's a process, one sec, she says.
Okay, thank you. That
Um,
way people will be able to follow a little bit better.
yeah, it's
Thank you.
explain. I think it's explain, and then it about talking about how a person is going to come to a decision about how they're going to move forward. My coaching with our students is very personalized, where I don't see all, I have the luxury of treating people as singular folks. I'm not in HR. I think HR has a very tough job. Um, and maybe if someone can Google what the acronym is, example, you give an example, effect, and change. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Courtney. So you give, I'll ask students, can you give me a vivid example of what you're talking about? It's not effective to say, he always treats me badly. Can you give me a vivid example? So that's the E, and then the effect on that. It made me feel this way when I gave you that example. You said, I'd like to talk to you about this. It made me feel this. So you're giving the example, how it made you feel, the effect of it, and then let's look to the future. How are we going to change moving forward? And in companies, that can be tricky depending on who the manager is, who the staffer is, who the other people are. But facts are the facts. Um, Courtney says the C in EEC can also be continue for positive feedback. We need to get really good at it, though. I mean, from peer to peer, it's helpful to get positive feedback or just any feedback. And it's tricky. In fact, I just wrote an article on LinkedIn about managers who used to be peers. And so the power dynamics in workplaces have changed. Oftentimes, people question someone else's motives. Like, why are you giving me this feedback? Do you not think I'm good at my job? That kind of thing. It's But more and more in this complicated workplace, no one can be an expert in everything. So it's important to find ways to make it psychologically safe to talk to your peer and say, I've been giving thought to what happened in the meeting, and I have some thoughts about it and ideas for you. May I share it? It's important to get buy-in, to ask first, if someone is okay with you telling them what you see. It's also helpful that as staffers, you have every right to, when you witness something that you find offensive, you have every right to say, I need you to know that what just happened with that staffer, I found offensive. And I think other people did too. And I think that shouldn't be happening in our workplace. As a staffer, you have every right to say these kinds of things. Yvonne is talking about the Gallup Clifton strengths with teams to help frame feedback, provide strengths-based coaching, and help with establishing team values and processes for conflict resolution. Yvonne, what I say to that is whatever works in your organization, it's one thing to have the tool, and it's another thing to implement it and utilize it and have people understand how to implement what the principles are of that. And that's one of the reasons I like the DISC assessment so much. If any of you are looking for a personality test, there's actually a free one online, 16personalities.com. The more insight you can get to your own personality, and that gives you insight to other people's personalities and and how to perhaps approach them differently. Um, yeah, I love this. I love whatever tool works for you, that's what to proceed with. Dana, anything else?
Yeah, we had a message earlier, someone who's worked in both the public and private sector, and they were just sort of sharing their thoughts that leadership and supervisor positions are not valued for what their job should be, which is to develop people to perform at their best, to develop and achieve their goals that are in line with the organization's goals, and that leadership inevitably leads by example, and the example that the leader sets should lead the organization, either good or bad. So, just sort of a thought from someone who's seen, again, public and private sector.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought it up. What I'm hearing and what I see is that in the workplace, s- behaviors like that are not being supported because what is being valued and incentivized are profits, is the bottom line, is how fast are we implementing AI, those kinds of metrics, those kinds of results. And what is not being as valued or incentivized is how people feel about being in the organization. What kind of culture are you building? And whether it's private or public, I believe that more leaders would be more eager to actively and strongly build a culture of respect and ongoing professional development if they were incentivized to do so. If there was a monetary incentive for them to have strong retention, for them to have, 360 uh, feedback reports that say that people love working at the company and they're eager to um, promote other people who they know to work at the company. Those kinds of metrics speak very loudly. So that's one of the changes that I believe needs to change in whatever sector you're in, is that for leaders to be incentivized to have a culture where people actually want to be there rather than a culture of fear. Um, yeah.
This might be our last question. William asked, do you feel that remote working has removed some of the staff person's workplace identity? And if so, how do you deal with it?
William, I believe that is absolutely true. I'm worried. One of the things I'm hearing from the seasoned EAs in the workplace is that some younger people who only know a remote workplace are not as effective communicators, that they're having difficulty because they haven't had to. And when they, are in person again, that there is a discomfort, just like the discomfort I described when Olympia came back after her 3 months in Australia. And we were two people who knew each other really well. Humans are meant to be with other humans. And that's why hybrid is having such success, because it's a mix of both. I'm concerned about our ability to build rapport. But, I had that example of Justin, who is working out of Jersey, but he gets himself on a train and comes on down to be with people in person so that they can truly feel that they have an identity, that they're not just a number. Because when people feel like they're just another, that they don't matter, that they're just another number, that they have no identity, a unique identity, they have no real motivation to go above and beyond and to want to stay. So I think it has become a leadership problem to face. How do we keep our people engaged? And those companies that went fully remote, that decided to give up the brick and mortar in the aftermath of the pandemic, they had their reasons. One leader said, you know what, Bonnie, he was a CEO. I didn't want to have them and us. He was envisioning that there would be a culture where it would be the people who come into the office against the people who were at home. He said, you know what? I don't want that. I want everybody to be the same. So we're going fully remote. But what he does spend money on are plane tickets, that quarterly they get people together. So they may not be paying rent, in a New York City high rise, but they're paying for plane tickets and hotel rooms because they understand that it's really important to be able to look into each other's real eyes, shake their hands, see that they actually have legs and wear shoes, that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with you.
We had one comment, Scott, saying most jobs require building trust with coworkers, and building trust requires spending some face-to-face time.
I completely agree with you, Scott. And I hope that this starts being taught, that principle starts being taught in business schools. But prior to that, I, I want to talk to the 20 somethings. I think we all can talk to our 20 somethings who are aspiring to lead in companies and talk in real time. I get 20 somethings in my workshops, and it would be wrong to say that they all want to be fully remote. They do not. They miss people. They want to be with people. So it's not one size fits all. There's not only one rule. I would say that in 2019, there were aspects of the workplace that were simpler, that, everybody was really clear. No one thought that leaders would go for the hybrid workplace or fully remote. Oh my gosh, no. But now it's a different time. And I call it a new workplace. We need to have conversations like the one we've had for the last hour. And for one, am grateful to have read your comments and to understand what you think. The polls were really, enlightening, and we have to continue it. Our young people are depending on us to do this. We need to help them and help each other.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Bonnie. I want to thank everyone who joined us and had a lively discussion. This was great. I love to see all the interaction with our attendees. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to the next time, Bonnie at bonnielowkramen.com, if you want to continue this conversation. It can't be them versus us. Leaders have to talk to assistants and the staff and HR and recruiters and talk to the business school professors and the students. We can't be in silos. Silos never worked, and they really are not working right now. So let's do this thing. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.